So this is the final one of the three that I'm going to boot up now. This one was actually called Final Backup on the tape, so this was the last ever backup I did of the A590. And this is the one where I've actually put copies of the files from all three backups into a folder, just to make it easier so I can browse through any files that have been saved in one place. So that's booted up to the Workbench now. So again, I've obviously created like a main window with the main programs in that I use, and organised things into different folders. You can see here, this I think was probably set up more for work related stuff, or I say work, it was more college, because it was about college time when this installation would have been in use, probably 94, 95. So we've got Wordsworth word processor installed on here, which I would have done some of my college work in. The old ProText word processor that I used to use as well. I've got some antivirus software on here of some sort. I think that's a background virus checker. Not sure what this is. Maybe this is perhaps a boot sector antivirus thing by the looks of it. Yeah, so you can see here you can read and write the boot block, and I think this is just like an antivirus boot sector type thing. That I don't seem to be able to get out of for some reason. Oh, it's still doing something. There we go. Cruncher would be, yeah, so our tools for compressing and decompressing both normal files and executable files. And we've got graphics, which will be dpaint. Photon Paint was one of the programs I think I was talking about previously that I couldn't remember the name of. So that's another program I would have used. Power Scan, I used to have one of those hand scanners that you used to have to manually drag along a piece of paper to scan it. They were really painful to use, they were, because if you went too fast it would mess up and the image would be stretched. If you went too slow it could also mess up as well. They were a bit of a nuisance. So don't really recall much about this program. I don't think I really used it. It was just something I had for whatever reason, so I installed it. So I'm not really sure how to use it. I think it works quite well with ham mode pictures. I think that was one of its strong points, but I could be wrong. Not one of my areas of expertise. Well, not much is on the Amiga anymore because I've forgotten everything. This art department thing, I think it was like a conversion program to convert formats, or maybe Picturebox was. Yeah, so this was something to do with altering pictures in various ways. Looks like you could save to grayscale and probably save out in different colour palettes or different resolutions. I'm not entirely sure. Again, I'm not entirely sure. This is not something I can really recall using much. And I think Picturebox is a similar thing. So yeah, so I do vaguely remember this. So you'd load your picture in and I think you had like a preview window. Not sure if that's what that is. Okay, so it's got a very weird interface. So you can load and save pictures, apply different filters. Looks like you can save them out in different colour palette depths. And yeah, various image processing options. Icon Master, something I would have used. I think some of the icons on this installation are icons that I've either drawn or I've taken existing icons and altered them in some way. So this is like a, so there you go, so you've got a clicked version of the icon and an unclicked. So it's sort of a two-state thing that you'd used to get on the Amiga. Looks like this is something for setting the permissions as well for the, I don't know if it's for the file or the icon. I don't know. Again, really this is stuff I need to get back into having a go with and seeing how it all works, because I've just forgotten so much. Is that just display settings maybe? Don't know. Not sure what that is. So yeah, I don't know what this display thing is. Text editor folder. So I've got a few programs here for just editing basic text files, and probably also like hexadecimal editing as well. Edward, I think, was a pretty good one. TextEd was a more compact basic editor, if I recall. There's various different options that this would allow you to do, search and replace, all that kind of thing. It might even have a spell checker in it, this one. Not sure. Yeah, it's a text editor of some sort. And I think TextEd is a more basic type of thing, probably a bit more like Micro Emacs, that kind of thing. DocDump was something I used to use. A friend of mine used to use this quite a bit as well, and it would let you print out a document to smaller pages and basically make little booklets up, which was quite a good thing. I think it was I think you could only do it from text files though. I think it only supported basic text. It wasn't something that would support graphics. View 80 was something I used to use all the time, and this was just a text viewer, but it was really good. It was quite fast and efficient. Let's see if I can find any files that are worth opening in it. What have we got? Edward config. So yeah, there's not really. It was a really nice little viewer, and I think you could open multiple files. So you see along the top here, you've got these numbers, so you could have multiple files open at once and just switch between them, and there's loads of things you could do with this. And if I recall, it will also open pretty much anything. So this is the part command on the desktop, and it will just display binary files, which was actually quite useful because you could open up a binary file and see what bits of text were hidden in there that you perhaps wouldn't otherwise normally be able to see. And you can see in here there's some, where did it go? Just some text embedded in that executable file there. So that was a really good tool. Used to use that all the time. GB Root Plus, this was a sort of an auto root type thing, much more basic, very limited with the level of detail that it would show on the map. Actually was looking at this at Swag because somebody I was talking to at Swag used to use this for their work travel. And you can see it's compared to sort of the modern day Google Maps, this is really basic. You can't even drag this on the screen, you have to use these controls down here. So all the control mechanisms we're used to with this sort of thing are completely out the window. So very basic. It just shows the sort of main roads. No way there's going to be any kind of street level detail on this thing. So yeah, probably would have been quite an expensive bit of software back then as well. Utilities. So some of the standard Amiga utilities have been put in here, and obviously got additional things like this calculator. I think this one's got hexadecimal and scientific modes and things like that. So yeah, so programmer's calculator, so you can do binary and hex and that kind of thing. Obviously quite useful if you're into that kind of thing. And then just mostly the standard commands. I think this was some kind of a zoom tool. Yeah, so you could, if you double click it or you right click it and then you get another level of zoom, so you can zoom in on things. That's quite interesting. Not something you can particularly use for zooming if you were trying to draw or do icons, because it doesn't really show you where the mouse cursor is on this screen here, but it did have its uses. What else have we got? Sysconfig and info is probably going to be again more the standard Workbench things. I'm not sure that these are. SnoopDOS. I think SnoopDOS was something that let you see what was going on in the background, a bit like something called Process Explorer that you can get for Windows and Process Monitor. There are tools that let you see what registry keys are being accessed in Windows and what files are being accessed. So I think this is a kind of an Amiga equivalent of that. I think I've opened this up before, but Control C to exit. Yeah, last time I didn't. That's another thing I keep doing on the Amiga. I keep hitting the Alt key instead of Control because I'm so used to using PCs now. I'll get my head around it at some point. I don't know what this is. Is it perhaps some kind of sysinfo alternative? Yeah, looks like it. Perhaps showing what libraries and things are running. Yeah. And then obviously the classic sysinfo. This is a fairly standard Amiga, so nothing exciting to see here really. Power Pack Apache. Not sure what that's done. Some kind of screen blanker. So guess that's like a thing to save burning on the monitor, so a black screen after so much inactivity. So if we set this to say 3 seconds and hide it and not move the mouse for 3 seconds, then I'm guessing we'll get a black screen at some point. But obviously not just yet. Okay, well, anyway. What else have we got we can look at? What have I missed? The VBS obviously was the VBS software, and that's just been installed on here in case I need to use it again or want to. File. I've got a copy of Hired Guns installed on here. I did also have a little, I don't know if I'd want to go as far as calling it a trainer, but I wrote a little program in Amos to sort of hack Hired Guns. The only downside was you needed a machine with 2 meg chip, 2 meg fast RAM, so you could run Hired Guns and Amos at the same time. It wasn't like a proper trainer as such, it just ran in the background and tweaked some of the memory. I'll have to see if I can find that and get that running again. On the subject of Amos, the one thing I am a bit disappointed about when I've looked at these restorations is there's no Amos installed at all. Although I've got the installation discs backed up to the VBS tapes, it's not actually installed on any of these backups. So I'm guessing by then I must have just uninstalled it and stopped using it, which is a shame really, but that's definitely something I'd like to install and have a look at again at some point. I did actually own Amos Pro, and I also owned the Amos Pro compiler. I bought them both. I remember the nice big glossy white box that Amos Pro came in, and a big thick paper manual. Spent lots of time just flicking through it, reading about what all the commands did, and then obviously having the compiler was great because you could just compile something and then you didn't need to mess around with all the other stuff to get it to work, and obviously the loading time of anything that you wrote was quicker as well. Unfortunately, I never really wrote anything particularly useful in Amos. It's a real shame. And there doesn't seem to be any Amos projects or files on here. There's some old college work I've found on these backups, but not all the stuff where I've messed about, or old dpaint files and things like that. But I do think I have got copies of them somewhere on some of the discs, so, or they may even be on my PC, because I did, before I got rid of the Amiga, I did actually install cross-DOS and copy a load of files over. And I think if we look in this folder here, I might actually have to show all files to see it. So you can see here, these are college files, year 1 and year 2, and we've got an Amiga and PC folder. So I think the Amiga folder has got the original work files that were done on the Amiga. I mean, who knows what's in here? Probably nothing particularly exciting, or what these would load in. I don't know if these will, so they won't load. I can't even remember how to load these files. It's crazy. I'm guessing I'd have to go in the program, or maybe yeah, I can't remember how to use Workbench at all. It's terrible. Maybe they just need dragging onto the program and that will load them up. But yeah, all this stuff I need to relearn. So yeah, so it's my old college work files is the only thing that seems to be on here. Nothing fun. I think there is some more files on here as well. So obviously we've got all the system files that are hidden. Yes, and then here there's the VBS backups folder. So this is basically a copy of the 3 backups which I've restored and been going through on this video. So you can see here, this is this installation and all the files for it. It just means that if I mess this up, I can copy things back, and I've also got access to some of the files that were on these other backups. So there was modules and things in here from the very first one that I looked at. Just to make things a bit easier, what we could also do, go into here, so we've got various disk management software, Xcopy Pro, of course, everyone had that. Standard HD Toolbox utility that came with the A590. I think Express was a way of backing up the A590 to floppy disks, which is what triggered off the whole purchase of the VBS system, because it was just so painful backing up to floppy disks. And then of course Directory Opus. I'll get this to load, and I remember this. I did actually spend a lot of time configuring this in a way that I liked. I'm not going to say the colour scheme is particularly attractive, but it was set up to work in the way that I wanted it to, and that was one of the things I used to love about Directory Opus, is you could just completely configure it however you wanted to. All these buttons down here, you can change all of these. It's actually got like a 2-layer system, so you can I think you can right click to get the alternate, like an alternate program for each one of these. You can set these to run programs, commands within Directory Opus, all kinds of things. If we click down here, you can pick off the drive, so I can now come onto here and browse the files on the hard drives. This is a little bit like a file explorer in Windows in a lot of respects. And in fact, the company that wrote this write Directory Opus for Windows. It is a current modern Windows program, and it's one that I've actually bought because I absolutely despise what Windows have done with the newer versions of Explorer, well, Windows generally, to be honest. And again, they've got the same mentality as they had back on this Amiga version, where they let you completely customize everything, and it's obviously way more configurable and complex than the Amiga version of Directory Opus. But this thing back in the day was just fantastic. You can see you've got menus on the top here, and even all the menus you can configure. In fact, if we go into configuration here, so you can see here with configuration for Directory Opus, you've got the buttons menu, and this is where you can configure what all the buttons do. And you see there, left mouse button click is for those, the right mouse is the alternate. So you'll be able to see here I've configured the left click here is for ASCII file view, the right click is the ANSI file view. We've got a mod, I think it's mod playback and sample playback, not quite sure. Yeah, so I've given them the same name, but the right click will be the one after the slash. So left click would be probably to play a mod file, right click would probably play the sample, which we can try in a moment. And yeah, so again here, flags for a file, and then the right click would be the comments. And again, we'll have a quick look at that. And you can set up different banks of buttons, and there's just so many things you can do with this. Your drives list, which you perhaps saw on the left hand side, you can configure that. There's just loads and loads of options. These are the menus, and I think you can do customized commands. There's just so much. I'm not going to go any more into that because we'll be here all day. So say I pick a file here, and if I left click this button, then we can see all the file attributes for that file and edit them from within here, which is obviously much simpler than messing around in the shell and typing commands. If I right click that, then I get the comment option, which is where you can assign a comment to a file. So let's just try and find some files that can perhaps be played. So if I go into my VBS backups, modules, so if we left click this, so that's now playing the Leander mod file, which is crazy really. I mean, this is a 7 MHz machine doing this multitasking. It's such a brilliant thing, and I remember switching to my very first PC, which was Windows 3.1, and just being absolutely gutted at its complete inability to multitask. You format a disk and you'd have to go and make a cup of tea. You couldn't do anything else. The Amiga really did sort of spoil us in a lot of ways. see if we can, I think we can go back a directory. Yep. So you've got buttons here for forward and back, and this thing was so ahead of its time. Such a brilliant program. So, oops. So let's go back into samples. That's another thing you probably saw there, is the selection. You can effectively highlight them, and you can see the colour coding that I've done here. I've made files red, and I think if there's some folders somewhere. Oh, these, no, sorry, these are folders. So the folders are red, and they're associated with the commands down here that I've put in red. And then if I actually go into a folder, hopefully there'll be some files in here. I think these are all sample files I've ripped from games, and mod files that I've ripped from games using my Action Replay back in the day. And you can see these are green, and then I've assigned the green colour to actions that apply to files. And then here you can see blue, file and directory, so things that will apply to both. And it's just a colour scheme that I set up, seemed logical to me at the time, and to be honest it still does. So if I right click this, as you see, that's just playing that sample over and over again, which, so I click, I don't know what these are from. Agony. These have all been ripped out of games. So it's really good that we can obviously use this to just go through and have a look at a few things. Robocop. Samples out of the game. And what else have we got on here? So I'm not really sure what this was, so let's have a look at this in the inbuilt ASCII viewer. So that's some kind of executable program. No, I'm not sure what that is. I'd like to know though. No, don't know. Bit of a mystery. And I think something that's from over 25 years ago is going to remain a mystery, unfortunately. Again, there's another difference. Is sort of on your PC, you've got a programs folder and everything's installed in that. On the Amiga, certainly my tendency was to just dump everything in its own folder on the root directory. I don't know if that was what was normal, if people made a programs folder, but this is, or just dump them straight on the root directory. But I certainly seem to have just dumped everything on the root directory. I'm not sure it's something I'd do now, but so yeah, as you can see, using Directory Opus makes things a lot easier to navigate around the files and investigate things. It's a brilliant program. Let's come out of that. This is some kind of a defrag tool. So yeah, a few other utilities in here, the disk copy tools and whatnot. In the sound folder, well, obviously we're going to have Octamed. I assume there's going to be some other programs in here as well. So that's another thing I keep trying to do, is drag the side of Windows, and I can't do that. It's the bottom right corner. I've got the Octamed player. Stereo Master was a sampling program. I used to actually have a Stereo Master. Well, I've got one now. I bought one off of eBay some time ago. Unfortunately, mine died for whatever reason. I think I probably plugged it in and out while the machine was on. I think that's probably what killed it. It's a shame really, because I think it got thrown out, and now I would have been more than capable of just replacing the parts that were broken on it, but never mind. See if the Octamed player works on here, because it wasn't working on the other installation. We might be able to drag some of these mod files across onto here with a bit of luck. I don't think we've got any mod files on this backup, but maybe the second one had some. I know the first one certainly had a couple, because we've just played some. But can we drag and drop? I thought we could drag and drop. Someone's probably screaming at me now watching this video saying you don't do it like that. There's an Octamed player in here as well. That's the... I don't know what the difference is. Why one's got a massive icon and one hasn't. Can we drag and drop that way? No. Maybe we just have to go to a file menu and open it. Oh, I'm obviously doing something stupid here. Anyway, not to worry. So I think I'll probably call it a day at that, because this has gone on long enough. There's yeah, in some ways it's a little bit disappointing what I found on here, but then in others it's not. I mean, it's nice to be able to look back at how this was set up all those years ago when I used to use it. I think, as I say, I think this was set up more in the end for work-related stuff and college stuff, rather than what it used to be used mostly for, is playing games and messing about. But, so I think I'll probably carry on with this installation as it is, and just add to it, and probably install Amos and a few other things. I know there's a lot more programs available now that make it easier to use Workbench, and I see a couple of people using these little program bars along the bottom that you can click to launch things, and you can also drag and drop files onto them as well. So probably look into things like that. Anyone's got any suggestions for things I could install to make this setup better, then obviously please do that. That would be really helpful. Another thing I'll probably do is go through and decrunch, unpack, whatever the appropriate word is, the various files that are on this setup, because there's really no need for me to do that now. It just causes delays when programs are loading. The only reason that was done because of lack of disk space, but I've gone from 20 meg to 500, so the disk space is no longer an issue at this stage. But as usual, that's it for now. I will continue with this installation, I think, as I said, try and add to it and update it and progress from there.